on. I think the next large news conference we want to do is going to be related to, if at all possible, the existence of these energy devices that would prove not only how a vehicle might travel through space at great distances with the limited fuel on board, but also would begin to explain the basic physics behind all of these objects that have been seen. The main purpose, however, is to introduce to the world solutions to the very earthly problems of how we're going to live on this planet. And I think this tracks back to one of the practical aspects of what the Disclosure Project has been doing, and that is, it isn't just a matter of having had a sighting of a UFO that's been tracked on radar or this or that is telling us that evidence is. It's the fact that there are a range of devices that have been developed both by humans and apparently been studied by humans that originated from an extraterrestrial origin that demonstrate a physics that is way beyond the burning of a fuel in an internal combustion chamber. In other words, the people that we have now within our team can document that technologies, both of human invention and of extraterrestrial origin, have been known, studied, and actively and deliberately suppressed from public release since at least the 1950s. That could have replaced all of the energy systems on the Earth today. And this is something quite relevant.
And I feel that pilot sightings are very bad because of a number of factors. Pilots are highly educated and trained. What that means is that they have a career at stake. They're not going to come forward with a report of some strange object or light inside the aircraft or near the aircraft unless they've already eliminated all of the prosaic information. They're just risking their career. So that's the first reason I like pilots. Another reason is that they're flying aircraft that are just packed with electromagnetic radiation all the time. Or equipment that may be influenced by EM radiation. So if we can find some characteristic change in those instruments, or the radio, or radar, or the direction finder, or VORs, or VMEs, or various kinds of onboard cockpit instruments, we're learning something about the nature of the radiation that's, we think, related to the phenomena in some way. And of course, that's what science is about. Science can get interested in if it has some good firm data to work with. In some cases, jet interceptors, Air Force interceptors have been set up, in many cases actually, to help or to identify or investigate the phenomenon. But the pilot might ask for radar coverage. Did you see anything on radar? And Captain Daniels' story includes that very event. Did you see anything on radar? And Boston Air Traffic Control said, no, we don't see anything. But sometimes they do. I have many, many cases in my AirCat files where there is good positive visual radar correspondence. Well, I'm asked quite often to say something about AirCat. These initials stand for Air Catalog. This is a rather extensive library I've been collecting for almost 30 years now, from commercial, military, private, and test pilots. I have over 3,000 cases now. A certain proportion are certainly historical that I've not interviewed myself, because some of them are so old I wasn't even alive. I wasn't born yet. And many of them come from Project Blue Book, which is the official Air Force study of this subject. But many of the recent ones I have. Flying an airplane is fundamentally manipulating energy from one form to another. Thrust vectoring is another way of thinking about it. Well, now think about that for a moment. That if this phenomenon is so maneuverable that it can avoid a collision, the last technical report has scores of cases like that, zipping over the top of the aircraft just at the last moment. Pilot doesn't do anything. That says something about intelligence. It suggests technology, at least. It suggests an understanding of energy management that I don't think. Now the skeptics, some skeptics will say that these are all visual illusions. And I can't buy that. Not all these pieces. Not with 3 sets of eyeballs in that cockpit. Not with radar confirmation. Not with ground confirmation by radar. Or even additional aircraft nearby. I think it's fair to say that pilots, being human beings, are subject to the same psychological pressures as anyone against reporting these strange phenomena. It shouldn't exist. Authorities tell us there's no threat. Tell us that there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing there. Why report something that's not there? So pilots being professionals have to do it. This object, whatever it was at his altitude and moving rather quickly from right to left until it was pretty much right ahead of him. And then he said, stop. It came to an abrupt halt right in front of his aircraft, and he started to gain, the distance was lessening, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. I said, well, what did it look like? He said, it looked like a bullet. It was flat on its rear end, pointed on its front, and kind of parallel at the top, and then it tapered down to the point on the front. Well, what did you do? Nothing I could do. It was just there in front of me, and then it maintained distance. It just kept a constant distance. It didn't change the size, in other words. So we're equating size of the object with separation distance. And what happened? Well, after some minutes, it just continued on its way in its original direction. End of story? Almost. He radioed his wife to describe what had happened. Found out that he'd lost some time. Time had passed longer than it should have, where he was. And I suspect the object was right ahead. There are very often multicolored lights on these objects, daytime and night. So why do you need lights on in the daytime? Avoid the reflecting surface. The lights are not FAA approved. Very often they're blue lights. That's not a true aircraft light. The lights are often sequenced on and off in some regular pattern.
And there's giant triangles that appear over Palmdale that move very slow. So they may be different. The ones that I've heard about have this glow around them, and they're very large and very slow moving. So that's different, I think, than the ones that appear over Belgium and that are very fast moving. The ones that appeared over Belgium that move very quickly in a few seconds, no, you can't explain that in unconventional physics. Just like we use conventional physics, I mean engines and jet engines and rocket motors and propulsion systems as we know them today. You put fuel in, you burn something, it produces thrust, and it accelerates an object. In that context, no. And in that kind of physics, you cannot explain hardly any human beings living long enough to go much, much beyond the edge of our little solar system. Because it takes almost 13 years to get to the outer edge of neutral deltas and some of the outer things that are going around with Pluto and Charon and things. So that's 26 years round trip. So you're not even out to the edge of the heliosphere where the edge of the sun's interaction with space. That's 3 light years away. That would take 150 years. So in a conventional term, no, you can't explain it. It has to be, the physics that have to explain that are quantum physics in which things can appear to be almost 2 places at the same time and appear and reappear just like positrons and electrons do in some of the high-energy particle flyers. Probably not anything pushing it through the air. It's a coupling of the device with the energy that permeates space. Probably Tesla was close to when he said that it's given the right energy system, the right electromagnetic spectrum, I can power a human base on Mars, or that he wants to, in quantum physics, to verify that's possible. Sakharov and a number of people have written on it, I think, but they're a very convincing argument. Gravity of space is like an ocean, an energy ocean, with solid energy floating inside it. And if that's true, then gravity waves exist. And in fact, everything goes back to heavy-sized waves, and it waves like one of those. And the quantum is not out there at the time. And if that's true, then there's a whole different, you look at the whole universe in a different light. And then a lot of things become possible. And possible to get out there, understanding of what time and space and thrust and force and what is. Galaxies on the average are 10 million light years away. And even our galaxy is about 100,000 light years across. All of the conventional thrust and force mechanisms that we conceive of just won't work in terms of human time frames. That's the only explanation I can get, is that if people are here from another civilization, then they've understood the finer points of quantum physics and how to couple that from particles into beings that can do what particles. I don't think anyone in the ordinary aerospace business would have had any knowledge of what they were even talking about in conventional quantum physics or wormholes or types of things we know now, because if you went to CERN and talked to the particle physicists, they would tell you certainly some of this is possible, because they see that where they think they see mass, they really see energy frozen in a time point. And what they're seeing is not, it's really frozen bundle of energy, and it moves back and forth without any restriction.
The world has gone mad today,
I thought there were no credible stories that I may not be able to explain them.
Any more bright ideas?
No.
What are we going to do for an enemy now?
Dad. 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 Dad.
I miss anything?
Nothing.
Also dead.
These guys are all dead. What, are you working from an old list?
Sir, these are the kind of guys that we're looking for. Well, this guy, he's still alive. But he's down in Florida making license plates now. She's reformed and looking good.
You know, we were thinking, what could be a bigger threat than aliens invading from space?
Ooh, boy! Scare the shit out of everyone. Even me, sir.
Jesus, is this the best you could come up with? What about, international terrorism?